I'm Robin Jellum. I'm a global product manager for Aruba Central, specifically working on AIOps and more specifically working on AI Insights. One of my goals today is to not say AI ML at all after what I've just said. So if you catch me doing it, please raise the issue. So I want to set some context here. The problem today isn't that we don't have data. We have tons of data. The problem today is that we might have too much data, and how do we go through that data? So, data is fundamental to what we need to do to troubleshoot, no matter which tool you're using. And so I said I wasn't going to say AI ML. AI ML requires tons and tons of good data. So that's not really a problem anymore. We have the data. The problem is we have too much data, and we have a ton of different kinds of data. We have data coming in from many different sources. We have wireless, we have wired, we have WAN, we have it from different kinds of environments, big ones, small ones, retail, education, K-12. I mean, it's just a lot of variety out there. And what we're trying to do is try to help make sense of that. And the other part of that is we can do a lot of things to notify people what's going on, but the velocity of problems coming in, it can be overwhelming. You can get alarm fatigue. So being able to do granular alarms, while may be interesting, may be exhausting. And at some point you stop looking at them because they don't, there's just too many of them. So what we're really trying to do with AIOps is drive towards value. We're trying to say, okay, we've got all this stuff. We have all the knowledge. We have all the data. We have all of that stuff. Let's apply it, and let's try to make life a little bit easier for the people trying to use the system. We have a ton of networking experience. Let's apply that and try to do things that are providing value to the system rather than just showing you information in a monitoring system. So fundamentally, when you're troubleshooting a problem, there's a few things that need to happen. First of all, you need to detect a problem. So you need to you need some sort of an event to happen, or you need some sort of way of detecting something unusual happening. And there's many different kinds of ways to do that. And again, I said I wouldn't say AML, but AI/ML is just one of those tools. It's not the only way to do things. It is a tool. It is an arrow in the quiver. So we use that along with a lot of other tools to figure out how to detect a problem, and then also how to triage the problem, because detecting isn't sufficient. You can detect a problem, but what you really want to do is triage it, right? If you want to know how big of an impact this problem is, if it's a minor problem, I'm going to deprioritize it. If it's affecting one person at one site, okay, it's a problem, but it's not as important as 100 people being impacted and they can no longer use the system. What we're trying to do is help you drive to business value. What's the biggest bang for your buck? If I only had 1 hour to fix one problem, where would I spend that time? So triaging is extremely important. So once you triage it, then you want to figure out, okay, I need to troubleshoot it. So you need to diagnose the problem. You need to spend the time looking at the data, figuring out what the root cause is. For every problem, there could be potentially multiple reasons. For every reason, there could be multiple root causes. And for every root cause, there could be multiple solutions. So it gets really complicated. So you have to have a lot of knowledge, and you guys are all experts here. You understand all of this stuff. What we're trying to do is help winnow that down so you have a more actionable thing to do rather than spend your time doing all the troubleshooting. We're trying to make your life easier by troubleshooting some of it for you. And then,
is there any way for like us as engineers to be able to feed into that, to give feedback to the AI as it's doing that? Are we able to say yes, this was a problem, or no, it wasn't, and things like that?
That's on the roadmap. We haven't got that yet. Right now, we're looking at the complexity of the problem. So right now, we as an industry have barely scratched the surface on what we can do with this. We're building that infrastructure. So that is certainly part of it. One of the challenges of any sort of troubleshooting system, any sort of system that tells you, here's the root cause, you want to make sure you have accuracy in that root cause. You can't have, random things. Because if we're going to, and I'll show you in a minute, if we're going to make a change for you, we want to make sure that change is the right change. So that brings me to the next point. So once we troubleshoot a problem, once we figure out the root cause, we want to be able to figure out how to best solve that problem. So we want to come up with a solution. And then that solution is also not sufficient, because as people are coming up through, as we're learning all this stuff right now, people don't always trust these automated systems. So you need some way of validating that the solution actually worked. So what I'm going to show you today, I'm going to give you a little bit of a glimpse into the future. What I'm going to show you is coming up in our next release. We don't have it quite out yet. So this is a little bit of a experiment. This is a demo system. This is in the works. So what we have is one of our insights, and this insight is detecting outdoor clients on a per SSID basis. Is saying you have a lot of outdoor clients that are trying to connect at a very low SNR. It's affecting the indoor clients. So these are, think of passerby clients. If you had a big box store and you were in the building using the Wi-Fi, but then you went out to your car, your client is still trying to connect to the Wi-Fi and still using resources, and it's affecting the people that are actually using the resources. And it's even worse than that, because you could actually drive away and drive back by that Wi-Fi, that big box store, and your client will still try to connect to that. And it'll use resources that aren't really useful. You're not actually trying to do anything. It's just your client being a client. So we've come up with an insight that says, okay, we can detect inside and outside clients, and we can come up with an optimal setting to disregard outside clients while minimally impacting inside clients. And if you see this, the light blue here, this light blue is the indoor clients. And this long tail here, these indoor clients are also not having a great experience. If you're down to an SNR of 10, you're probably not having a great experience. Anyway, this is an insight we've had for a while now. What's new here is we've added this update button. So this update button, if we click on it, we can actually automatically go and make this change on your system for you. And this is, again, on a per SSID basis. So what that means is you can say, I trust your AI. I trust the stuff that you've done here to go and make a change for me. Now, you don't have to trust it. We can say cancel. We can say, okay, we hover over this. We'll tell you exactly what you need to do. The thing we're doing is helping you find that and making it do it automatically. And then this whole process runs on a weekly basis. And so we're constantly monitoring, constantly running this. And so this may need to be tweaked further in the future. If you choose to do the automatic setting, we'll continually, on a weekly basis, we'll continue to optimize this network. So let's just go ahead and do that. Let's say update. So when I update, it says it's been updated. No magic there, right? That's fairly simple, but just go to a different place. What I can show you here is if I go and look at this SSID and I go into the advanced settings, and if I go to miscellaneous, and if I scroll down, it's going to show that I've now set this to an automatic update. Okay, so you can do this manually, but you have to figure out where to go, and it's pretty, Wi-Fi systems can get pretty complicated, and how you find these specific settings can be a challenge. So we try to automate that as much as possible, and so we set that up for you. So now it's run automatically. This will get pushed to the access points. They will change the probe and the off thresholds to the value which was set in the automatic value, which is set to 10. And then what we also do is we create an audit trail. So here it says the swarm successfully configured. So here it says that the information was pushed. If I go back here and I say I want to do this back to manual, and I say the settings, and it takes a couple seconds. Let me refresh. So here it says two things, right? That the configuration has now been changed to AI driven, which is, we set that to true. So we show you exactly what's been done. And then we show that the configuration was set. So that's just basic auditing. So we can actually go and see what happened and validate things that happened. But the real thing that we want to show is, okay, after a while, in this case, we picked a week. So we want to look at the network before and after the change was made to validate the change did what we expected to do. So we automatically generate a report. So I'm going to show you a report here, and it automatically gets generated here.
Hey, Robin, while you're getting to this, quick question: is this
Sure.
part of Aruba Central, or is this something optional?
This is part of Aruba Central. This comes as part of the basic package.
Okay.
So currently, all of the AIOps pieces are part of the foundation license. That may change at some point in the future because AI can be expensive, and so we may need, if we do some expensive stuff, we need to pay for it because we can't lose money. But yeah, everything I'm showing you right here today is going to be in the next release, available to everybody.
So how does this scale up, sir? I can see if you have one campus that's relatively compact, getting these recommendations weekly would be fairly easy to sort through. But if you're looking at, say, 8 or 10 campuses with 50 floors each in each building and 10 buildings each, that would get quite overwhelming to manage. So you're either trusting the AI or not, and auditing if it's doing what you want it to is very laborious at that stage.
It's a valid point. So the question I would pose back to you is, okay, if we didn't show you this, your network be running in a suboptimal manner. So we're at least giving you some information saying, here's a way you can improve your network, right? You can improve the user experience. And so everything we're trying to do is about user experience, right? All AIOps is about how do we give the best user experience. So our belief is that you should trust in the system. We understand that trust has to be earned. So we're on the road to making this stuff automatic, but we're giving you all the tools to validate it in the meantime until you do trust it. So everything we're showing you here, this is all pretty complicated stuff. Figuring out this stuff is not trivial. So we do a lot of vetting, which we don't do these things every 2 weeks. We have to do a lot of vetting of data and make sure everything works before we have high confidence to release it. But once we release it, we believe it's going to be better for you, and we hope that you trust us. But we're giving you the tools to trust it. I understand there's a lot of data there. I don't know how to reduce the amount of data if you want to see the data yourself. Does that answer your question?
It does.
How did you classify between indoor and outdoor clients?
We have a model that we built that is determining whether a client is indoor and outdoor. We did a lot of testing. We sampled a lot of data from a lot of customers to come up with this machine learning model. This is part of our value add.
So it's not based upon some sort of location and technology. It's based upon things like signal strength and information from it.
It's been, and I didn't write it, so I don't know all the details, but it's based on a lot of variables that indoor clients and outdoor clients based on a lot of variables about the clients, right? The SNR is certainly part of it. Relative locations can be part of it. But it's a fairly sophisticated model that we developed specifically for, so a lot of the models we developed are used in other models, right?
I guess what I'm asking, obviously, Aruba do location platforms and BLE tags, and I'm trying to work, is some sort of locationing system or location wireless design required for this to be able to determine if something's indoor and outdoor?
No.
How is your design going to affect how accurate its designation is? Because obviously, we can design access point locations to get more accurate location. So I'm just trying to determine really whether it's going to impact the design.
Yeah, so great question. I'm not the person to answer that. We can take this offline, and I can get you in touch with Jose. We can go into great details about this.
Okay.
Do you guys know the percentage of error in this model, like deciding how many of the clients are outdoor and outdoor, the percentage of error that the model will produce?
So for all of our models, we strive to, we don't release it unless a 95% accuracy. So that's our bar, 95% accuracy. About that specific piece, I couldn't tell you. I'd have to go to the data scientist.
Thank you.
I think it would be useful for us as engineers in terms of your thing where you're talking about trusting the AI, knowing how it works or how it's got to those things. I think that's a big part of us being able to trust it.
Yeah, so that's a conundrum, right? So the question to me is, do you need to understand everything about something to trust it, or do you need to see the results? So the way we've approached this is, I think results will speak for themselves. You know, I don't necessarily know how every piece of a car works, but I use the car and I trust the car is going to do what I want it to do. So it's a conundrum. I understand, you know, I've been at Aruba a couple of years now. Aruba is a very, everybody wants to understand everything. So when I talk to the SEs in the field, they want to know all the nitty-gritty details. That just doesn't scale, right? So it's a conundrum, it's a challenge. So we will be doing a series on how we're doing some of this stuff. We don't want to give away all of our secrets at the same time, but I really, from my point as a product manager, I want you to use the system and I want to validate. That's why we're putting this validation piece in. We want to make sure that what we said is going to happen, happened. And if you want to understand more, we can work on that, but that's not the essential piece of it.
So I think the issue that he's driving at is that your results reveal intention, but how you get there reveals the solidity of the idea that drives it. And you're right, you can't teach everyone everything, but a key part of us as engineers is wanting to be experts in it. Moving forward from that, is there an education plan so that, let's say, select individuals can be experts in as much as you can reveal? You know, we don't necessarily need to see the code, but if you can show us the Lego walls to build the house, so to say, I think that would put a lot of us at ease and help us in the long run, really.
Yeah, so I'll take that under advisement. I mean, we'll take a look at that. I've just started implementing it internally to get our data scientists to teach our own people internally about how they're doing things, what they're doing. So we haven't even done that internally. Right now, the data scientists are pretty much talking to themselves. But I'm starting an internal things. We can actually take that and make it more public for those people who want to do it. We'll do some videos and we can release that.
Thank you.
Hey, Robin, more of a general question. So back to the dashboard and the fact that you're, crunching all of this data and, giving recommendations and finding issues and all of that. Knowing that that Aruba Central is managing switches and everything. I know you've only shown us a very limited example, but if I'm using Aruba APs and I'm using another vendor's switches and I'm using another vendor's whatever, SD-WAN appliances, I've got a mixed environment. Is there any easy way of quantifying, okay, well, you're going to really lose a lot of your AIOps functionality, or the way it's been designed, you're still going to get a lot of value on just the wireless side, even if you can't get into the switches? How does that shake out?
Yeah, so it's a great question. There's two parts of that I'd like to answer. One is, we're focused on Aruba products first. We're building this out. This whole AIOps is relatively new, so we're working on that. So we have AIOps, we have AI Insights today for access points, switches, and gateways, which are our own. The challenge with third-party devices is there's no clear communication path between the two. There's no standard. If I want to go, we realize we aren't the only network vendor. People may have Aruba APs and Cisco switches, right? So we know we have to interoperate them. The challenge with that is, how do we get the data we need from a Cisco switches and parse it in a way that we can use it? So that's a big challenge. It's not, and that's something we're looking at, and it's something we want to do. We understand, people don't have homogeneous networks. So we're working on that, but we're working on Aruba first. So we want to make sure Aruba works first, and then we'll start bringing in third party as we can. which kind of leads me to the next topic. So, so this is all about mobility field day, but mobility isn't just Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is the, it's kind of the cool part of it, but there's a whole bunch of stuff behind the scenes that is necessary to be able to do mobility. You have to have an infrastructure. You have to have switches. You have to have gateways. You have to have links to the internet. You have to have all of these pieces to be able to do the Wi-Fi piece. All right. So one of the things I'm going to show you today is also coming in the next release is currently we have discrete insights. We have insights for access points and RF, and we have insights for switches. We're starting to cross-pollinate those two. And this insight here is the first insight where we're looking at data from switch infrastructure and the access point infrastructure and figuring out how we can optimize their network. So let's go to the floor plan view. So here in the floor plan view, we can see the access point placements. We can see the RF mapping, but we've also added the switch stack mapping. So we are actually going in and looking at what access points are connected to which switches. And then based on that, we can say, show me the footprint of those access points on that switch in the stack. So here I've got a stack that has 2 switches. This access point has 4 APs that's covering this kind of the lower middle. And this stack is covering kind of the lower left. Okay, so that's great. But we also have this little bullet here that says, hey, there's some more information. If we click on that, that takes us to the insight. This insight is saying, because you have a stack and because you have APs on that stack, there's an optimal way to position those APs on the switches in the stack to have the best coverage possible should something happen to one of those switches in the stack. So what we've got here is we're saying, okay, if we swap AP15 and AP22, and AP15 is on switch 2, port 20, and AP22 is on switch 3 and port 20. If we swap those two, we can actually get better resiliency. So should one of these switches go down for whatever reason, firmware upgrade or whatever, the other access points will have better coverage of the area that switch and those APs covered. So this is the first time we've actually started cross-pollinating switches and access points, and we'll be doing more of this in the future. This is the direction where we're going. You don't want just these, tell me what's going on with the access point. The access point isn't necessarily the problem. If an end user has a problem, it could be Wi-Fi, it could be the access point, it could be the switch, it could be the link between the switch, it could be the link between that and the gateway, it could be the gateway, it could be the WAN connection, it could be the server. I mean, there's tons of different problems that, from the user, I'm just having a crappy experience. I need to figure out the root cause. That's the direction we're going with AIOps. We're trying to figure out all this stuff from all the different devices to figure out the root cause along the way.
So with this thing that's happening here, is this taking actual RSSI data from the AP, hearing other APs around it and making decisions based off that?
Yes.
Or is it doing it just off of floor plan?
No, it's actually doing it from all the APs. And what we've just shown you, what I just showed you was, let's go back to the floor plan. It's actually looking at all the APs in the site. So the insight we gave you is saying, okay, this switch stack, you can do this, but it also looks at all the neighboring APs on other stacks. So it's looking at all the data in total for the site and come up with a calculation of here's how you can make the minimum amount of move for the best resiliency. And it's essentially free, right? Swapping a cable is actually fairly easy. If I can improve my resiliency by 12% by swapping a cable, that's pretty easy to do. And if I go back down to that, I'm actually giving you very specific instructions on what to do. I can attach this to a ticket, send some tech into the wiring closet, and all they have to do is make a swap. Right? They don't have to know anything. They just make a simple swap and they're done.
Hey, Robin, this is really cool. How tight is it to your model of what is a floor? Not all APs connect to switches on the same floor, and not all buildings that we try and cover with Wi-Fi are nice, square, flat buildings.
Yeah, great question. So like I said, it's looking at all the APs that a switch stack, the APs on a switch stack can see. So it's looking at the total 360 degree of that. And again, it's a complicated model. I personally don't understand it. People much smarter than me write this stuff. I just get to talk about it. And then I wanted to show you, so that's the demo. And then I wanted to talk about a couple more things that are coming up. So we're doing this cross-pollination, which is cool. We're doing closed loop, which is essential. But we continue to develop new insights and continue to develop new models for figuring things out. And so a couple of new things we're going to show you that are, again, coming in the next release is we can show you when a gateway that has dual uplinks when data is using an uplink that is not performing as well as the other uplink. So it's just basic optimization. We can say, hey, your broadband uplink is not performing your MPLS isn't performing as well as your broadband. So, and most of your traffic's going over MPLS. So you probably should put a rule in to use your broadband because you're not getting the best user experience you can. You've got both of them available. You should be optimizing this. So that's one basic thing. The other one we're looking at, which is, I think, personally is really cool, is that we're looking at uplinks in the same region from multiple sites, and we're comparing them to see if one is underperforming. So in this case, site A is underperforming compared to site B and site C, which are all in the same region and using the same type of uplink. So site A, we're saying, hey, you're not getting the most value for what you're paying for. You should call your provider and say, hey, my uplink is underperforming compared to people in my region. So this is a fairly sophisticated model. Region is, it depends on the density of information we have. So region could be city, it could be state, it could be country, depending on what country you're in. But again, these are kind of some of the optimization models we're coming up to make network easy and give you insight into how your network's working.